Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael, and today we are excited to have back on the show Nita Kummari, who you might remember did one of our earliest episodes with plant medicine. But today she's coming back on to share some of her journey, her own healing journey, and what it led her to discover. Two things being astrology and also future life progression. But before we get started, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody, and thanks again. I'm sorry my voice is a little out today, but so I'll sound like a frog, but bear with me. Thanks to everybody who's been supporting our show. We've got lots of followers and subscribers. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. It definitely helps us out a little bit. If you're listening on Spotify or whatnot, follow us. You can buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. It helps to offset some of our production costs. But if you can't afford that, we're happy to have you anyway. We love doing this show for everybody. And thank you to all of you that have reached out and left us some really nice comments and stuff. And it definitely is very gratifying to know that you do appreciate the show. You can get all the information on our next episode and so forth on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out. Just a quick look ahead. Next week we have Spell It Out. Krista's free for all, so we'll find out what interesting things she has to tell us. And coming up in October, we have some really great guests. We have our good friend Holly Lindblom from Holly's Haunts coming back, and Mystic Mitten Paranormal from Detroit. And then Madame Zulema is going to be back, and she's going to talk about the Day of the Dead and the Latino culture. And then our good friend Jackie Smith from Coventry Candles and Coventry Creations is going to be back to talk about Samhain. So all kinds of cool mystical, occult, paranormal stuff coming up in October. And so again, we're really looking forward to that. And we're excited about the show today because we have a good following in the UK, and Nita's now moved to the UK. So it's our first overseas guest. So we're excited about that. And hopefully that will all work tech-wise, but we'll find out. So take it away, Krista.
Great. Thanks, Michael. I'm looking forward to all these shows. And one more thing I wanted to mention before I introduce Nita is she's a very powerful, intuitive channel and medium, and she's been working over 20 years doing the things that she does, and we'll talk about some of that during the show. But welcome, Nita.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Michael and Krista. I am excited to come back. You guys have been doing a great shows, and I definitely love hearing all your journeys and some of the very esoteric podcasts that you've done previously. Very interesting. So I'm glad you're doing this and continuing to grow.
Well, thank you. And we love having people like you come back and share some of all of your knowledge, because it's hard to get it all in one show. So why don't we start with you talking a little bit about your own journey and healing that took you towards all the different tools that you now use.
Well, I was intuitive since I was little. And I think like many of us, if it's not cultivated in our childhood, we further our ways from it. And then I came back into it probably in my 20s after I went through some severe traumas. And I've been on my healing journey for the last 20 years and reconnected with those intuitive muscles. And we all have intuition at varying degrees. Like Jung, he talks about the 4 functions that we have, which are sensate, emotions, feelings, and intuition. So through, my journey of healing, I've picked up different modalities, try something here and there, did family constellations for a while. I still do them here and there. I heavily rely on my intuition. And when my life was really going to absolute poo-poo, I I was like, what is going on? Why am I in this consistent like cycles of down and down and down, and then depression and suicidal tendencies? And I just had to get a grip of my life. I was like, what is going on? And I started looking at astrology, studying astrology, using my intuition, because I think astrology is great because it's very objective. It really shows you, here's the transition that is coming up. Here's where the planet's going to hit your natal chart and your natal planet. And this is what you can expect. But with astrology, you get the conjunction, you get the energy of the planets, but you don't quite know exactly what that means. And so I find that it's great to prepare your life, a couple of years ahead. And then I use my intuition to really guide me into, okay, well, so for instance, in my personal chart, I'm a Sagittarius rising, Capricorn second house, and I've got natal North Node Jupiter and Venus, and all these planets right now, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, have just been hitting me. And it's been a lot, just had a job, didn't have a job, have a job, didn't have a job. So I was like, okay, in the second house, for those who don't know, who are listening, is, your material possessions, what you value, what you don't value, your inner resources, right? What did you come into this lifetime with that you can use to guide you in I think, material resources, like your stability in life, right? And because it's in the bottom quadrant of the chart, it's also unconscious, like you've got to develop it, right? So I started looking at astrology, and I started to go, okay, in 2 years, this is what's going to hit. Now, I was told that when Saturn hits your second house, you got to tighten your purse strings. I didn't fully, I didn't say I wouldn't fully listen, but I was like, yeah, it's going to be okay. Luckily for me, because I've been going through so many ups and downs, I was changing, 2013, I was changing jobs like knickers. And it was just like one job after another, and I was losing them, and I was like, what is going on? And I wasn't on my path and purpose. I wasn't really on my path and purpose. I was doing jobs to survive. And luckily, because I'd been going through so much, when I did get a really good job and I started working at Mystic Journey bookstore, I started really saving my money. And in the last couple of years, when Saturn was going through my second house, what Saturn does is just restrict your money. It's just like, okay, well, you don't have as much to spend, so you got to cut your expenses. And then my whole path I just knew I needed to leave America. My whole path opened up. I did a sizable amount of healing with my family that was just very restrictive. And I took off, and I thought I was going to live in Barcelona for the rest of my life. That I went to Barcelona, and that was not quite, I figured out it wasn't quite where I wanted to be. And then I when I was in Barcelona, I could, and I fell in love with it when I was 19. I went there on a very naughty college trip. I'll tell you all the shenanigans that I got up to as a 19-year-old. And so I just felt this, this squeeze in my chest. Like I just felt like the universe was squeezing me out of Barcelona. And I left last year in August, and I can't believe I'm in UK for a year now. It's the first time since I was 17 that I honestly felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And I have not felt that way since I was 17. And for those of you out there, I'm now 47, so 30 years ago.
That's awesome.
So it was, yeah. So the first time things are like finally just clicking and clicking and clicking. And I met the love of my life, which that was a whole nother story within itself, how I met him. But I listened to my intuition, and I kept seeing him coming in. I felt him coming into my life. So it's that lesson of listening to your four functions, listening to your intuition, your emotions, your energy. We're massive conduits. Our bodies are extremely massive conduits. And most of us, when we've had, especially those who've had trauma very early in their years, like I did, we become very dissociated, and we just, what we do is, well, this is my take anyway, is that we are, the most purest parts of us says, okay, you know what, I'm jumping out of this body, I'm just going to float over here, but it's not really safe to be in this body, and we're more up here than we are connected from, you know, the torso, the solar plexus down. And so we have this, we're very, you know, connected with the ethers, you know, the universe, a cosmic flow, and we're very heart-centered people. But if, you know, we've chosen to come into this world, and this is the things that I've been discovering, like if you've chosen to come here, and like I said, I was suicidal for years. It took me a long time to just go, okay, well, you're here. And I can talk about it now, but, you know, I've had some suicide attempts where the spirits were just like, at least 3 times I can remember very clearly, the spirits just, in the 11th hour, they were like, I could see them, and they just went, okay, that's it. It's not your time to go, and pushed me back into my body. And I was disappointed, let's say, but I had work to complete, so I couldn't leave. So now I've said, okay, how I need to work on healing myself. I need to get connected back into my body and heal those traumas. And I think you can't really heal those traumas until you're connected to your body. And, you know, the way I developed some of my intuition was through some of the family constellation work that I do, where you're channeling other people. And it really helped me to step into those using my body as a massive container that receives information and sorts it out, and then can disseminate it to the clients in the way that they hopefully can receive it. So it was very, you know, very healing. Not easy.
It's interesting. We've had several guests on the show. We talked about the importance of the body in different ways, and it's easy in any spiritual tradition I don't know why, to forget that. Even though it's even taught in certain spiritual traditions, the body, and others it's not. I agree, but it is important to really stay and learn to be in the body. And for me, I think just going out in nature helps me to be part of the physical world, just going for a walk or watching the birds or, you know, watching the squirrels. That has always helped me to come back to the body and feel like I belong as a physical being on earth for this moment in time.
Yeah, I would say so, because nature is so, they are so connected to the earth, right? I mean, we are so driven and focused on material wealth, like our survival. For them, it's just their imprint. Well, I've just got to survive. I've got to eat, and I've got to kill, and it's part of their DNA. Mm-hmm. We don't know. I can't say we're very evolved, but we're evolving, and you know, we have thoughts, and we are very mutable. Well, some of us are very mutable, right? So we can evolve. Okay, well, I've done this now, and I've evolved, and I've outgrown this piece of my life. Now I want to strive for something new. But, you know, basic animals, they just go, well, I'm going to get up today and look around for some food. I'm take a nap and then do it all over again next morning, kind of thing, right?
True.
And then when we're in that survival mode, you can really see people spiral when they're in that survival. So it's also, I think people who are really working on themselves and taking that internal journey are truly trying to evolve, right? Truly trying to be a better version of themselves. And I think that's where, you know, I think that's where I can truly use the word spiritual. Yeah.
So in your own journey studying astrology and working with your chart, did you find that there were certain things about astrology that really stood out for you in terms of helping you? I know you mentioned it a little bit. Did you look at them from the Vedic point of view, or Western, or mythology? What was your own journey with just synthesizing the knowledge, and how do you stand with it now?
That's great questions. I know you and I used to have great conversations at Mystic Bookstore, and I miss those conversations. With astrology, what I wanted to do is first learn my own blueprint. What are my mechanics, and what are my unconscious behaviors? What am I here for? And I did get readings from astrologers that are really good at what they do, and I began to understand myself a great deal. And as I was entering my 40s, I tell a lot of my clients, and those who are pretty much old enough, I would say we spend the rest of our lives undoing the first 30 years of our lives, right? All that conditioning. And at some point, this is at least true for me, is that I found that as I got into my 40s, I became my own parent. I no longer needed to hold on to that, parental approval, and I wanted to let go of all the conditioning. I also needed to put, a very sort of abusive family and parents on the way, on really at arm's length, right? So I could breathe, I could find myself. And one of the things that they talk about in astrology is that you really just don't hit your north node or actualize your north node until you get into your 40s. And I found that very fascinating. And I just from living through my 40s, I'm finding that. So I started to integrate some of the aspects in my natal chart. And I also went, at some point, I don't particularly care for textbook astrology. This is this, Mars hits this, and this is all it is. Well, I want to go deeper than that. I have an outbound moon.
What does that mean? I've heard of that, but I don't really know what that means.
Out-of-bound moon. Out-of-bound moon people tend to, they basically don't take information at face value. They'll look for something more deeper. They'll need their own way of interpreting what is already out there. That they're going to look for what is truthful for them. Mm-hmm. So you can take out-of-bound moon is kind of like a Uranus, if you will. And so I kept looking for meanings within my own chart. And I also believe there was an astrology reader quite a while ago who just was like, well, this is your astrology chart and this is it, and I thought, oh my God, well, that's really depressing. I was so depressed. There was two people like that. And I said, this can't be. And so I researched more, and I actually, got readings from other professionals, and gave me a different way of looking. So there's this whole thing that, oh, Jupiter's great and Mars is bad, and I think it's not true. That we're multifaceted, and so are the planets, right? So I started to synthesize that way, and I also began to understand that I can't blame everything on my parents. There are things that I've come in to learn, mm-hmm. that are my learning curves. There's also my karmic path, something that I'm learning. And so when I started doing hypnotherapy, it really started coming up. And when I started designing my own course, I started doing hypnotherapy and healing a lot of things. It was almost like I was brushing off 25 years of, being in America, which was not my place, no offense. I mean, I wouldn't change anything in the world because I met incredible people like yourself and Michael and all people at Mystic Journey Bookstore. Was like, it was my spaceship. It was great. And as I started doing the hypnotherapy, I started to learn about well, I got introduced to FLP, which is future life progressions. And within the future life progression, I was shown that I need to design an astrology course. And I struggled because I was like, well, I don't know enough. I've only been learning this for the last couple of years. There are people out there who are so much more well-versed. And it kept coming up that this is what I'm supposed to do. Well, it's not enough to see something, right? Yeah, I think you've got to get to a point of removing those blocks. And I struggled, for a while, for about 8 months, I was struggling. And then the whole lockdown and the COVID, and I kept struggling, going, okay, what's my path and purpose? What's my path and purpose? What am I supposed to do next? I lost my faith in humanity. And I'm like, and I've had these big, big visions since 2016 of what was going to happen in 2020. And here I am, it's all coming. And so I started piecing my life together, going, okay, I can sit in my living room and have these huge visions of, future events. One of the more recent ones that I had was I write my newsletters to my clientele base, and I send it out every two weeks. And it's just, what's going on right now, current vibes, kind of like what you and Michael do here. And I saw, I was sitting there and I had this huge vision, and it was more in writing than anything else, but I could see in the background a city fall, a country fall, a government fall, and a person. And the person was either famous or not famous, liked or not liked. And I put it in my newsletter. I said, by, somewhere in mid-May, this is going to happen. And we saw the whole George Floyd thing happen. And then the next vision I had was a huge eruption that was going to happen in July, August, known as the Beirut eruption happened. So I began to start trusting what was coming. The books that I channeled in 2016, they were huge. They were just showing me that all the big things that was going to happen in 2020 and that began to happen. And I thought, well, when I put my books out, I thought I was going to make $1 million. I thought, oh, yay. here's my winning lottery ticket, right? And that's not how it was. And
that whole Cassandra thing, I once wrote, astrology is good at cycles. And so I'm becoming a researcher. I'm fascinated with the cycles. And so when Chiron first went back into Pisces, all I did was look back at the 60s. And I wrote about it, and I said, oh, there's going to be kind of the 60s return with protests, but it's got to be a little different, right? It's going to be, but it was exactly right. It was Occupy Wall Street started. We've had all these really big protests around race and women's rights. And I was like, see, it does repeat itself. It was so straightforward. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was more like reviewing the potential of the energies returning, hopefully so we go further with it, right? So to me, with astrology, it's to you look at the cycles that are long, hopefully to learn from them and consciously evolve to the next stage. And I don't know that we do that, but I think that's one of the intentions of going back and saying, okay, where can we go now with the same kinds of themes? And so I've gotten fascinated with that. And there is some of that, and it's not that hard because there's so much, the ephemeris are online now, so you can go and just look at ephemerises for free, which took a lot of time before. But it seems to me that broad cycles of astrology can be helpful. But I totally agree with you about astrologers and how they can really be very limited in their consciousness of how they approach a chart. Because I've had maybe some experiences with that, but luckily I've had some really great astrologers that had a better approach to their charts. And it's all about how you use the tool. It's not the tool's fault if someone abuses it,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of, like anything else, you got to find people that really are going at it to be helpful and to be, help that person, not to sort of, limit them in some way. So, but I wanted to say that I totally agree with you with the concept that you're talking about is trusting your own intuition with how to use these things. And ultimately, probably that's all we really need on some level is our intuition, but it's fun, all these tools, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's another whole system called human design, and it's a very complicated system. But, as a generator, which is what my type is, I'm supposed to know myself. And it was so interesting because when I started looking at human design charts and studying that, I was like, oh, yeah, this correlates to a lot of what's on my astrology, because I'm a Sagittarius rising and I have a stellium of planets in my first house in Sagittarius. And I do need to know myself. I'm here to know myself. I tell people I'm a real selfish a-hole. And I am very selfless and compassionate, and in my healing work, but it didn't always come naturally. I was very fiery, and I had to learn how to be in that. And you're right, yeah, the cycle. So I like looking at progress charts, and in my progress chart, the moment that, well, maybe not the moment, but when the sun moved into Pisces from Sagittarius, I was about 21. I came to America and I became a complete victim. I became a complete martyr, completely abused by my family. And I got into abusive relationships. Now, this is the unconscious part of your chart, so it's going to come out at some point. And I started to learn about that behavior inside of me, and that was the big catalyst for my healing. I thought I took a massive tour when I came to America. I thought, when I was in England, when I was 17, I wanted to be an architect. I could see my whole path in front of me. I don't know at this point which way I was supposed to go. I've had my intuition about, we can go this way or this way, right? And that's the beauty about astrology, is that it is very objective, right? You can go this way or this way. And I agree with you. I think it's about how astrologers approach the charts. And there are some that have great finesse and they say things in a very nice way that is very easy for the receiver to digest. And I think, any conscious, good healing practitioner will be able to come from a place of compassion. I think it's very, very important.
Absolutely.
So
I wanted to ask a little bit more about exactly when you talk about future life progression. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know about it and the training behind it, and just the theory of it? I'd be interested in knowing more.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started to heal with the future, the past life regressions, and I kept being shown the astrology was a big part of my path. It wasn't enough for me to see it. Something did not quite sink in. I started doing some research, but the way I wanted to approach it wasn't quite coming to me. So I kept sitting with it. I'd write a little bit and then sat with it for, with the whole COVID. I was going through my own healing journey. And then I did a future life progression. And what I did was I was working with one person, and her name is Lorraine Flaherty, and she's an amazing past life progressionist, like one of the best that I've ever come across, goes super deep into the past life. And then I saw who she had trained with, and her name is Anne Jersh. And I'll just give you a quick background of how she came about it, and I'll answer your question. But she was also, doing hypnotherapy, NLP work, and regressions. And she was working with two different clients that had never met each other, and they were coming out of in and out of her office. And now she knows what's going on, but they both had the same regressions.
Wow.
Yeah. And they did not know each other at all. Finally, anyway, they all got together, and then those two got together. There were two men that were in the military in America. And they got together and they did a regression without Anne knowing. And they were shown, they were shown that they need to go, that Anne was also part of their past lives. Anyway, so long story short, the three of them came together, the two American military men and Anne, and they did a powerful regression together. Now, when and you know this as a healer, like when very conscious people, or when people are in a group, the vibrations are more heightened, right? And they went into what they thought was a past life regression to see why they all had, what was their path and purpose to come together. And they started to see, like, all three of them saw very similar things. They saw two skyscrapers in the sky. They saw a bay, and then they saw the skyline just change. And they said, well, how is it possible that the skyline changes? And they were seeing helicopters, but they were not seeing that it was military or it was the police. They saw CNN, they saw America, and they thought, well, we can't make heads or tails of what this means. So they all went off, and in good old English fashion, they went to the pub and had a drink, right? And they ignored it, and they thought, okay, well, let's get on with our lives. We don't know what that was all about. And unbeknownst to them, they had their first future life progression. And they saw 9/11 happen 2 months or so before it actually happened. When 9/11 happened, they were like, oh my God, this is what we were seeing. So then Anne went about, and she's already had a training. She started to work in future life progression work and is phenomenal. The way she teaches is very easy. You don't actually even feel like you're being taught. So I went for my training, and you really are in this very, very, you get put in a nice relaxed state, a deep relaxed state. And then you are gently progressed forward into your future. We typically do 5 years. And then we do 10 years if someone wants to look at what they're doing in 10 years. When you get progressed into your future, this, obviously we ask the client what they want to work on, but you really get shown, okay, what is your most best optimal path forward? What, like a lot of people like myself, I have so many things that I could be doing. And I was sitting there, going, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I am so fed up of doing this and this and this, and I wasn't getting a job. And I just thought, the universe is telling me, you're not supposed to go back to corporate. And my body was telling me as well. And I had to listen. So I said, okay, drop that idea. I'm not chasing a job anymore. I'm not sending my resumes out anymore. And, started working with Anne actually after I had already seen the astrology. And it wasn't, the thing is that it's not enough to see it, and this is the difference of what I want to do, is I want to not just help people see it. Like with Anne, what she really helped you do is the way she trains, and is very easy as well. But you're going in to also build a bridge on how you're going to take those next steps in the present moment. Because if you don't know how to get to that, 5 years is quite a while away, right? It goes fast, but it's still a while away. And you can't get to that 5 years where you're at your optimal, successful point, and without knowing what your future self actually did to get to that point. So we also ask your future self, you have a conversation with your future self, and they give you tidbits of exactly how they did it, what they did, but also what are those 1 or 2 steps that you're supposed to do here and now in this very moment. And that was the big difference. And when I went for my training, I knew before I was going to go in that training that something big was going to open up for me. And it really did. And now it's just locked in. Like even before the show, I was like on a super highway doing the things that I needed to do. Like something really clicked,
It's true. you can tell when it's clicking and you can tell when it's not. But you're right. Sometimes if you're not in that period where it's not clicking, you can stumble because you might not know, well, how do I get back into that flow? And how do I know? Especially, I agree with you, a lot of my clients that come to see me, they do have a lot of interests. And a lot of times they don't know which one to focus on, like which one is the one that is the one carrying them forward in a way that they want to be carried forward. Not that the other ones are bad or, they can be hobbies, but it's a very valid concern right now, for a lot of people because we live longer. We have a lot more things we do faster so we can learn faster. We can do more things, but will that make us happy?
Yeah, exactly. And, and that's the thing. It's like there was just so much I could be doing. And I was like, and the thing for me, my drive was I've done a lot of things and I'm grateful for all the tools that I have gathered in the last 2 decades of being in corporate world. Those tools are certainly not wasted by any means. I tell people that you've not wasted your life. You've picked up things, but now it's time to drop the things that don't work in terms of progressing you forward and you feeling satisfied and fulfilled in your life. Like I no longer need to sit there in a corporate job, building teams. What my path and purpose truly is a spiritual purpose. I am supposed to be leading people back into who they are. That is a big part of what I would connect people back to who they are. And there are lots of gateways to do that. There's many tools out there, and whatever tool resonates with you, that's what you're supposed to do. And I was shown very clearly that on my chart as well, that I've done astrology before. And when I have done my meditations, I've been shown that I have this, and I also just think I'm an alien visiting Earth. So, when I was little, I could just put my hand out and go, oh, yes, I can feel the cosmos come to me. I thought I was dropped off by a mothership when I was little. I was like, please come and pick me up. So the way that I also was, doing the astrology, I really got shown, and I struggled, I struggled for a few months, and they were like, write it your way, do it according to who you are. And I was like, well, I'm a very cosmic being. I feel, and this is not conceited, it's just me, but I feel like I'm a reincarnated star that's just plopped on Earth. And I think that everything out there has a soul. Why wouldn't it? Everything that's born, everything that's moving has a nucleus, and anything that's got a nucleus has a pulse to it, and anything that has a pulse is living, breathing in the universe. Maybe not in this, organic human body, but it is an organic celestial body, right? So the way that I got shown to do the astrology is to connect people to the planets, and I'm going to work with fixed stars and really have a personal connection to the sun, to the moon, to Neptune, and use their intuition when they are looking at their natal charts. And then when they're helping other people, they'll already have that instinct to do that.
I think that's a great way to do it. And I would say there's a couple people that sort of indicated indirectly for me to do it. At the time, I didn't know, but I worked at this great little store called Mirabai Bookstore in Woodstock, and they're a very magical store. And there was, at the time, Ann Roberts owned it. And it was very hard to get a job there because this one beautiful woman, I think her name was Jolie, with long blonde hair, worked there. And she was really smart and really into astrology. And so anyway, I'd go and talk to her. Everybody loved her. She was just such a great person. And she, at the time, said, well, I think everyone needs to study their own chart. And that was like in the 90s. She said, it's very important that you do it yourself as well. She didn't say you shouldn't go to an astrologer, because you should, I think. But I think she planted that idea in my head to do that, and that, to start approaching my own chart more, like you're saying, intuitively, even to who I want to study with or what books I'm drawn to. And I think that really does work. And I think that opens up this whole problem with the systems, like should I do a certain house system or should I not? I think whatever your intuition tells you, you'll see what you need in that particular manifestation of the chart.
Yeah, agreed. And you asked me earlier, and I apologize for not answering, but yeah, I mean, house systems is a whole nother conversation. I mean, you're right. Just use a house system that works for you. I use whole house because it's just easy for me. And I've looked at Vedic, and I've mapped myself out in the Vedic, and I was like, it still says the same thing. My path is a spiritual path. And yes, my burning desire was to be an architect. And somebody recently said, well, you're an architect in a different way. And I said, yes, absolutely. And it took me a while to get to that point. And so I agree, I think it's knowing yourself helps you to have a personal connection with the planets and understand that we're not all one fits all. I have, a few friends who are twins, and I have a few clients that are twins, and they're like chalk and cheese, and, just complete opposites, because at the end of the day, we have our karmic footprint as well. And so I have, for example, I have a very close friend of mine who is absolutely genius. Whenever I tap into his energy, if we ever do sessions together, I always tell him he's a master. His brain is beautiful. He's just one of the most cleverest persons I know. And he always reminds me of like the greats like Einstein and Aristotle and Socrates. He just is, he would not say that, but I always get that sense. I was like, you definitely born over there with all those people. Now his brother, not an identical twin, but his brother born on the same day, only a couple of minutes apart. So they have the very same chart, night and day. I mean, his brother is not very intelligent, unfortunately, and in and out of jail. And he has a Uranus out of bounds and Moon out of bounds, just like my friend does. And they're using their charts in a very, very different way. So
that's a great example. It's about how you use the chart.
Yeah. And if you don't tap in intuitively to the person, you can just say, oh, well, this junction is going to come and you're going to go to jail. And they're like, what? That's not what's going to happen, because Uranus is connected to criminals or people who do things that are rebellious, right? And rebellious can sometimes mean become an outlaw kind of thing. But that does not apply to my friend. It applies to his brother. So I think, you've got to go in on an intuitive level. And I really wanted to, I really think it's important to, if I'm, and I don't take this lightly, again, I struggled going, who the hell am I to teach this? There are people who've been doing this longer than me. To have to drop people into the connection of the soul of the planets and the soul of the cosmos, and really understand that the planets have their days as well. They have their moment where they're like, "Arr!"
I love that. I really love that idea in general. And I was influenced by listening to the esoteric astrologers on YouTube, with each planet having consciousness, some of them more sacred because they've evolved more, and some are still evolving. Like they say Mars is still evolving. But the way they talk about Mars, for instance, is so interesting. One of them called it the illumined warrior, which I really liked. And this sort of aspect of Mars that is there, but gets sort of left behind for some reason because of, I think, the mythology. I think the mythology is helpful, but I think, it can be limiting, and why only Greek and Roman mythology? You have to think about all the different mythologies in the world. So I love that idea of the planets being their own beings. And also one of the things I was thinking about with all the stuff that's going on in the skies it means a lot, I think, to the cosmos evolving. And I would like to see astrologers talk about that more because, for instance, when Saturn and Pluto were conjunct in Capricorn in the 1600s, it was the beginning of the scientific revolution. So we have, I think, a cosmic revolution beginning that's going to be really exciting for the cosmos, not just humans, but it isn't all dire. It isn't all about us. And how can we learn to see that we're part of a bigger dance is what I would like to see in astrology.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. It's we are. I mean, you know, Jung says it: everything above, everything below. And it's so true. I mean, what affects us here affects the cosmos. Jupiter, when I was doing my research, I mean, Jupiter's magnetic field protects us from taking in some of the sun's, you know, very powerful solar flares and the magnetic rays that it pulls out and pushes. And, you know, I can't remember when it was. I was watching a documentary when we had this really powerful solar flare and knocked out power in certain parts of the world. And, you know, Jupiter's magnetic force hits us, it protects us, but it also hits us. And for those of you who are like me, I'm crazy about the sky, you know, Jupiter and Saturn, you can see with your naked eye right now. And well, in UK at 3:30 a.m. I'm pretty sure Mars is waking me up because I've been waking up at 3:30 almost every day. And then I come out to my window and it's so bright. It's like one of the brightest objects in the sky. And I am very lucky to have found this incredible apartment where I'm living. I am literally, you know, right across from Greenwich, so in London.
Wow.
And right on the River Thames. So it's, yeah, if you're out, if you love gazing out, Mars is really bright right now. I think you can see Venus as she's rising.
Mm-hmm.
Not mistaken. Not quite sure what you can see out there in California. I know you can always see Jupiter in California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually, I remember seeing quite a bit over the summer with, I think it was Venus and Jupiter really easily in the sky. It was really pretty. And of course, if you go out to the desert, it's amazing out here what you can see in the Milky Way overall.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to get back a little bit to the future life progression and a couple more thoughts I wanted to ask you about, questions I mean. So you saw, you know, what you needed to do next in the future. And what is this kind of a guarantee that you're going to see the most positive future for you? Or let's say, what if you see, is it possible to see more than one future that you're trying to figure out which is the best? Maybe they're close. Is that something that could happen?
From my experience and from, you know, training with Anne, I kept seeing the same future over and over and over and over. And that's what I love. Like, it just locks in, like something just clicks. This is your path and purpose. And I have seen things that are coming up for me in the next, you know, in the next 5 years that I am supposed to be doing. And do we have free will and choice? Sure, we do, right? So we might go, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. Then you're going to go back like I did, going, okay, well, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And then you go back in and you're like, and then I got shown again, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And then it started clicking in. And like I said, I've just been streamlined. It's something locked, and I have been churning out everything that I was supposed to be doing in terms of business, you know, building my business here in the UK, building my practice, and also serving my higher purpose, right? And I think that's the other thing that I do is I ask, you know, when we're doing a session with myself, we'll ask, what is your highest purpose? What is it that will bring you joy, but also bring your soul joy, and you're serving humanity at a greater level? for instance, the other day when I did a session with someone, they've been doing trading for a long time, and they've been doing it because their father taught them, and been struggling, just really struggling, and in a bad place, and didn't know where he was going or what he was doing. And so we took him into a future life, and he got shown something completely different. And he started to already work on that pathway, and he nowhere did he get shown that he was supposed to be trading. And he was happy. He came out of the session. We also brought in the tools, like what are you supposed to do right at this moment in order to actualize that that path that you have been shown, and so that you can direct your energy towards it. And I think that's the other thing is, there was a guest speaker at my training, and he was saying that the more that you can visualize and the more that you build a bridge towards what you want to actually create, then it's like crystals forming. If you see crystals, when you see them forming, they start forming very naturally, organically. And so once something locks in, it will start, you'll begin to tell the universe, okay, I'm locked in now, just make it possible for me. And the other thing is that, there are people that are skeptical. I mean, who will go, well, I didn't believe it. That can't happen. And one of the things that, as our training, we can see when someone is actually having a real vision, and it's not their imagination. Because if it's their imagination, you can tell it's their imagination going off. Versus they're having a real vision. It's kind of like when you have premonitions or in your dreams and things, your rapid eye movements. There are different cues that we can see that show us that it's you're actually having a vision, you're being shown something. The other great thing about it is that I was shown that you can change subtle things. Like, let's say somebody's working on, they see that their mom isn't doing very well because she's not taking care of herself, let's say, for instance. Now, they can take that information and go, Mom, it might be really great if you did some more ginger. It might really help you with your arthritis and your inflammation. And all of a sudden, they actually take that cue, right? And then you go back in and you see that, oh, God, Mom's actually doing really well. I don't know if you can change bigger things, but I do feel that you can change subtle things. And again, I mean, you have free will and choice. I mean, I definitely could have gone and not done the astrology. Then I would have been sitting there going, I don't know what to do.
You really took to astrology, though. I mean, I know a lot of people in astrology. I've always liked to talk to people about it because that's just my interest, right? Like you. But you really took to it. You dived right into it, and you did have a knack for it, I think. And I agree with that idea that you had some kind of past life connection to it. So I don't think it is how long people do things. I do believe that there is knowledge people, whether they do it consciously or unconsciously, they tap into that they've learned before. And so it's like right there, it's easier, and it's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that coming from you.
Well, I finally sort of found my place with astrology is I'm not really interested in other people's charts. I'm interested in research and like the energies. For interest, I'm just sort of studying how it feels to be going through Mars retrograde in Aries. I'm trying to figure out a deeper understanding. I'm really interested in retrograde for some reason, the concept, because it can connect to time travel. So that kind of appealed to me. I was like, oh, time travel. I like that. So there's this whole 3-phase aspect to retrograde that a lot of people don't know about, but it's kind of hard to understand it actually, because I've only found one book on it. So you have to do your own experiential research on, okay, do I feel like I'm in this phase? And most of people focus on the past phase, but there's this future phase in retrograde. And I don't, again, quite understand how it works because of the way the guy wrote about it. But it's just a fascinating concept to me. And how can you go deeper with it? And what does it really mean as a process? So that's what I like. So we are getting a little closer to the end. I did want to share maybe with the audience how they can contact you. So what is the best way to contact you?
My website, worldloveon.com. And then they can sign up for newsletters and keep up with all the things that I will be offering, like I'll be teaching the astrology course in October. It will be available in October. It's the first run of it. And then the FLP will also be available in October. And just to answer your other questions about FLP, you can look at like not just what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. We also go in and ask like, okay, I've made I've done everything that I was supposed to do. Is there anything else? Is there any alternative that I'm supposed to do that will really help me? And the other one that was really cool, I thought, was you can go into your future life and see, past this lifetime, what were you doing? And what did your soul actually do? How much did you evolve? And that was very interesting to see. And I had already had glimpses of what I think I'm going to end up as a soul after this lifetime. So that was really interesting. So you can go and, sometimes some people like to do that because they want to go, well, what am I not doing here that I've done in my future lifetime? Or, for me, it was not even I wasn't even in an incarnation. I was just floating back and resetting back into the universe. And that was really cool for me because I desperately feel that about myself since I was little. So there's lots of different ways you can explore the future life progressions. And I think mainly people come in when they're really struggling in their lives to figure out where they're supposed to be going and helping that part of them. And the other day I did one where we took the girl into a past life first, and then I progressed her forward because she needed to erase the conditioning that was stopping her from moving forward, period. And she had all this amazing talent. She's an incredible singer and performer, and she just couldn't do it.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, my dad talks a lot about healing past life. That's what he figured his own method of going back into the past life and actually healing it. And I think it's neat to do both. It sounds to have the past life regression and the future. That sounds really like a very innovative, and probably it's going to evolve in its own way to what it is. But I love the idea of the future life progression. I think it's really powerful and interesting, just another way of exploring how we're cosmic beings and how we can affect things, through these practices. So I like what you're saying about it and how you want to use it. Your website, I did want to mention, it's still worldloveon.com?
Yes.
Okay, so that's worldloveon.com for you guys that are listening on the podcast. So we have just like a couple minutes left, a minute and a half. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with in terms of any of the topics today?
I think it's really, I think I'll leave with know yourself. No matter what tool you pick up, know yourself. The more that you know yourself, the more that you can make a real connection with what your deep calling and yearning is. And the deeper you go within yourself, the more you erase the conditioning that you have had from past lives, this lifetime. And, we're no matter what our parents are or structures around us, school, government, society, cultures, all those imprints are on us and they've molded us. But I think as adults, we can mold ourselves. And I think we have the responsibility to begin living our lives the way that we truly want to. And what our soul's contract was, right? So when we know our soul's contract, I think we can really create an autonomous relationship with everybody around us. Otherwise, we're consistently having codependent relationships and we're struggling. But when we're autonomous and we know ourselves, we can then know the other person and I think really strive in life.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. It's a great way to end. And thank you for coming back. I love the conversation as always.
Yeah, thank you so much. The hour goes so fast.
It does. So thank you everyone for listening, and join us next time as we continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a great week.